This is Changeling the podcast.
Welcome to Changeling the podcast, where we never metaphor we didn't like. I'm your host, Puka, and joining me today is Fetch. Greetings, Fetch.
Greetings, Puka. I am here. I am a monster. I know. But today, I mean that only in a proverbial sense, that
Yeah.
one must beware because you never know when your fetch is going to show up. Proverbially, but also perhaps literally.
I was thinking about this. I couldn't actually... Do you know any proverbs that have the word monster in them? I know, like, envy is sometimes called the green-eyed monster, but I don't know that
What
that's really...
about no, dang it, that's a beast I am less the beast I become. It's
No.
not. Doesn't use
Not
the word
quite.
monster in.
I don't know if that has quite reached proverb status in our culture. But...
That
Yeah.
is the best I have.
So, yes, today we are talking about Proverbial Monsters, a supplement for the first edition of The New World of Darkness. And this may be a mystery book to some people because it used to be on Drive-Thru RPG and it's been taken down, and there's no clear indication of when or why. So, yeah, I'm not really sure if there's some kind of issue with it, but it existed. Anyway, it's a collection of monsters for the world of darkness with no other explanation on the cover. And the cover, it looks like two guys fighting in a melting tree made of cheese. But I know it becomes clear in the opening story, but still.
This is fun. So when I looked at this picture, I thought, oh, maybe that man with the cane is trying to help his buddy get free. Though, as the story will
Nope.
prove, Puka had it much more right than I did. It's a pretty arresting cover. It's a strong visual image. The golden goop on the right side is pretty unsettling and contrasts nicely with the green on the left. Also, and this is clever, I like when an artist does this, they work their name carefully in the foliage.
Yep. So the author for this is Jennifer Brozek, who has done a bunch of Shadowrun writing and non-RPG sci-fi, fantasy, etc. The only other White Wolf thing that I could find is she edited the Forsaken Chronicler's Guide for Werewolf the Forsaken. But neither that book nor this one are mentioned on her website, so I really hope there wasn't like a falling out or something. Yeah.
You're right. She was the only writer credited on
Yeah.
this one.
So, I mean... I hope that we are not treading into tender territory by talking about this book, because following on the heels of Urban Legends, it sounded like something that could be easily ported into Changeling, Proverbial Monsters. So we figured it was worth a try.
Yeah, I should jump in then and explain for people who are curious what this has to do with Changeling. The short answer is nothing. It's like Urban Legends in that this is not a Changeling book.
Yeah.
And what game line is it for? None of them. This book is a collection of one-off monsters inspired by proverbs, which is a beautiful thing in the world of darkness, that it has room for these sorts of things. I think the only time we saw this in the, as they call it that time, the old world of darkness, was the bygone bestiary, which is still one of the coolest books ever written.
Yeah, there's some similarity.
The Bishop Fish forever, man.
Yes. So opening this up, we have the story Fool's Gold. This is two roommates who live in Olympia, Washington. One named Tony is bitter about the ableism he faces because he uses a cane. The other, Jason, is his self-proclaimed protector, who seems like kind of a dick. And
he's also classically doltish, where Tony is physically intimidated by Jason, but Jason is so obsessed with dreams of wealth throughout the story that he is easily blinded to Tony's manipulations.
Yeah. So Tony finds a chunk of what might be gold. Jason demands to know where it came from. Tony leads him there, and it turns out to be this animate substance that traps Jason like a gelatinous cube, which is the scene we saw on the cover. I felt it was a little bit like Of Mice and Men crossed with the Cask of Amontillado, but weird and cold-blooded because it's the world of darkness. So
I really liked this story. Rosick does a great job of bringing out both the sympathetic and, by the end of it, unsettling sides of Tony. And Jason never becomes a good guy, but did he deserve to be consigned to a wall of acidic gold? Maybe that's a bit much.
Well, and clearly they have some kind of abusive relationship, but it's not really
Yeah.
defined. Like, there are implications that hint maybe like Jason is responsible for Tony's condition, or like there might be some other motivation behind this premeditated act of murder, but there's not much to go on. It's fine as a story, though, I guess. I mean,
I also really like the background art that goes with it. A mixture of, well, it looks like it could be tree branches or it could be mineral veins, and the color reflects the idea of gold. It's perfect Changeling wrapping, even though this is not a Changeling book.
Nevertheless, we will look at this through the lens of how could it be used for Changeling. So, in the introduction, it kind of lays things out. This is a collection of 9 monsters based on, I'd hesitate to call them proverbs. It's really superstitions and sayings for the most part. And these are kind of the traditional prohibitions like 7 years of bad luck if you break a mirror, or step on a crack, break your mother's back, etc. So violating the spirit of these sayings will attract the attention of these creatures, but they're subtle and cunning. So they may attack your friends or family rather than you to redress the wrong of crossing that line. And each one is presented as a possible distraction or backstory element, or I guess random foe. They get stat blocks and story ideas with scenes, and they're applicable for any game in theory. But in particular, they talk about Hunter and Changeling, as well as World of Darkness Innocence as like the key ones.
I'll try to avoid harping on this too much during the course of this, but I must say that for a book that says it could fit for anything, and especially Vigil and Lost, it spends an awful lot of time talking about anything but those two games.
That is true. But even less time talking about Vampire. So there's that.
Shall we go over our fascinating little proverbs?
Let's do it.
Or sayings? I'm just going to blaze through these if you're cool with it.
I'm ready.
You will have 7 years of bad luck if you break a mirror. You might just call a strange creature to you. Step on a crack and break your mother's back. The monster within the earth will heal you, and your mother will break her back carrying your dead body to its grave. Walking under a ladder is bad luck. It may not be a ladder you walk under or through, and who knows what you will bring through with you.
Who walks through a ladder?
Picking a 5-leaf clover brings bad luck. It doesn't belong to you. Its owner wants it back, and it will revenge for your theft as well. Unless you were born in October, the wearing of an opal will be ill-fated. Only the children of autumn may wear my sigil. Those who dare to wear what is not their birthright will pay. All that glitters is not gold. Greed calls to greed. Those who seek to steal my treasures will become my feast instead. It is bad luck to completely rake out a fire on the hearth. A few embers should always be left burning. Bright and shining, you call to me and I come. Snuff out the burning guardian and I will bring you a death of burning ash for my own pleasure. Never open an umbrella inside a house, or you will draw bad luck to you. Do you mock me, you mortal of flesh and bone? Do you think I do not care for you in this house well enough? Fine, I'll show you what a cursed house can do. Never take flowers from a grave, or you will be the next to be in a grave. Never take from the dead, for we are angry and vengeful and have long memories.
Who takes flowers from a grave, though? Like,
It's like you've read scary stories to tell in the dark. Proverbially, kids do stupid stuff in the graveyard. I assume the idea is that children see flowers, whatever, or otherwise do stuff at graveyards, and adults think it may be disrespectful for kids to just screw around in the graveyard.
That's not what I did in graveyards, I'll say that much. Anyway, so yeah, these are our 9 tradition and superstition based monsters. Shall we get into it?
I am ready to get into this. We start off with Mirror, Mirror Full of Cracks. And I've just discovered that somehow this book's hyperlinks have made it so that the title of each one takes you back to the introduction page if you click on it. And the reason that's relevant is because one of my notes sits right on that, and I cannot read what I wrote.
Awkward.
But the sample story opens with Jane worrying about bad luck. She sees her reflection in the mirror. Okay, we're off to a promising start. Mirror people are a big thing once you get to second edition, Changing the Lost. And then we get into the traditional story of how this works 7 years of bad luck if you break a mirror, and it gets into where this story may have come from. All of this is literally stuff that you could find on a Snopes page. I only checked for this one, but I'm assuming it's the same for all of the other ones. You begin with the little short story, then we jump into Wikipedia search version of it, which, hey, nothing wrong with that. It's just brief, so you're not going to get very much that's truly novel here for those aspects. But hey, it sets things up. And then we get to, little antagonists here. Some called Mirari, which is obviously a reference to mirrors. And it turns out to be a really weird kind of creature. Do you want to take what this thing's all about?
Yeah. So the is it Mirari or Mirari? It's kind of torn between the two.
I think it would have to be the latter, right?
It actually does give you it gives you a pronunciation guide.
What? Where's that at? I don't.
Just before the name, after the Latin word mirari, which means to wonder.
Oh, there we go.
So yeah, the mirari are a class of creatures who are basically doppelgangers who spawn from broken mirrors and try to consume the soul of whomever looks into one. If they establish a link, they can then emerge through any other mirror within the same building, but they are bound to that building. If you destroy the shards, or you are unable to see yourself in any mirror in the house and you flee, that will defeat them. Although I did get perplexed by the mechanics of this. Do you have to break 2 mirrors in the same place for them to manifest?
This was equally confusing to me, that I made a note here about how these creatures function. I said, wait, so if you get out of the building, then you're free?
Yeah.
Or can it follow you if you're in another building with a broken mirror? Later on, it seems to be the latter.
Yeah.
That to banish the monster, you just have to get out of there or smash the original mirror.
Yeah, to the point that you can't see yourself.
Honestly, I was underwhelmed by how this thing works, because I gotta say, I don't see, hey, this monster will totally come after you as long as you stay inside of this bathroom.
Right. And the other thing is, they have pretty average stats. Like, their main attack is they have this beguile power, and that gets the victim to stare into the mirror, and then they have a consume power that devours willpower and then eventually causes lethal damage. But otherwise, they seem pretty flimsy and not that hard to defeat. So, I don't know, maybe a group of them would be tougher, but in terms of an obstacle for a party, it doesn't really seem that big of a deal. I don't know.
It also seems pretty hard for them to get their effect off. Their whole deal is that they're supposed to get a person to look at the reflection, and then it does this beguile thing to make people stare at it. Then as long as you stare at it, it drains you of life. I guess there's a decent chance of it getting somebody on the first go, but it seems strangely easy to avoid something that is supposed to have such deleterious effects upon your whole life the next few years.
Lots of setup, little payoff, it feels like.
There's really not much more to say about it to me, other than it seems weird that they gave it a full set of stats when this feels more in the vein of ghosts and spirits that use the ephemeral entity simplified stats.
Yeah. The story idea we get here is that there's a sullen teenager who attracts one of them, but then makes a deal with it to offer other victims in order to preserve himself, because the world of darkness is just full of little teenage sociopaths. And the scene that builds off of that claims to be mental 3, physical 4, social 3 in its difficulties. I doubt it. I guess this could be a hook that you turn into, like, maybe the mirror creature is a fey creature and the mirrors are little hedge gates or something. The devil's bargain angle of the story certainly plays into lost themes, but I would not say that this is like the centerpiece of a chronicle or even an individual session.
So this story about this little psychopath who's made a deal with this creature in the mirror feels very much like a prelude to a durance. Broken mirror attract the attention of one of the Fae, and they say, I'm just going to take you away unless you give me something else. And then everything becomes about them trying to avoid that fate. That could make for an interesting antagonist, but this to me should be much more about dealing with the child rather than the monster in the mirror.
Yeah. So that's the Mirari.
I feel like we're good to move on to the next one. Step on a crack.
Yeah, and its follow-up line, break your mother's back. Except here, it's attributed to an ancient Greek saying, which is total nonsense. Whatever. I do admire how the author seemed to be enamored with other languages, because all of these creatures have like fanciful names from, in this case, Greek. And I'm here for that.
It opens with a story about somebody stepping on a crack on a hiking trail, and then a big monster pops out. And this big monster is our new friend, I think they have a pronunciation guide for every one of these monsters. Fantastic. Yeah. The Dolly Octhon. He is a big old guy. Huge plant creature that has all kinds of moss and earth falling off of him. And he just wants to be left alone unless something steps on one of his vines, which hang out in cracks. And if you step on them, then he comes out and goes to eat you, because that's how he preys on people. Most importantly, he is what size? He is size 6, but he has stealth 5 and a camouflage power that allows him to perfectly blend in with his surroundings. Now, it's not clear exactly how this works, but it seems to be that he could literally be standing in the middle of a road and you would not be able to see him.
There are cracks in roads.
Yeah, well, there's cracks in roads, yes. It's just that most camouflage powers require you to be hanging out by something that you blend in against, and he could just be standing in the middle of the road after somebody. Oh god, that would be bad if one had set itself up inside of like a freeway near a gas station, and then people came over, and it's like, okay, well, thank goodness prey's only a few feet away. God, that would be so much more fun. The story idea here is, it starts out seeming like it's going to be a replay of that movie, The Ruins, where some people go into a ruins of a temple in Mexico, and they wind up encountering a monster that is pulling them away. It's whatever. Yeah. I think it would have been more interesting if the story was like I just described. There's some relatively innocuous place on the side of the road that it happens to have chosen as a favorite spot, rather than something that is this far out of the way. If we're going to have a monster whose whole thing is camouflage and hiding innocuously in places that humans care about, why not just set it around people?
Yeah, and ultimately, I mean, he has very little to do with actually stepping on cracks. Like, it could just be a random encounter without all the setup. I guess you could include the step on a crack thing for dramatic irony, but yeah. I do like, though, there is a note that he's not like a one and done monster. He continues to stalk prey. So make it a territorial thing. You know, you have a motley that's moving into a new area to set up their own little freehold, and this beast is already there. Like, you can make this a hedge beast very easily.
Oh, easily.
That said, I think we already have better options, like Antimony, was that it? From Grim Fears?
Gosh, which one was that?
She was the big, like the keeper's pet that was just wanted some love, but she was like this big hulking monstrosity made of earth and vines and whatnot.
Yeah, I remember
Very
that
similar.
part. Yeah.
Swole stats, camouflage, etc. It's like, what? Just go with her. She's better. Anyway.
So I have a question for you, Puka. What is an archway but a portal?
Well, it comes with a content warning of self-harm for this section, so I'll just say that up front. But, so this is the walking under a ladder is bad luck, which they say comes from it symbolizing a gallows, or it may summon a weird ethereal starfish that bemuses people into doing reckless self-harming things. This is apparently significant enough to be, in the World of Darkness, something that's buried in the Vatican archives. All kinds of things going on with this opening description for this section. So the monster here is called the Dreamer, as a corruption of the word dreimre, which is Irish for ladder. It enters the world through temporary portals that have 3 straight sides, so underneath a ladder. It's non-corporeal, but it has a bemuse power, similar to the Mirari one, but instead of a willpower drain, it gives a penalty perception rolls. And a terrify power, because its goal is to get victims to kill themselves within 10 days. It's not really clear why it tries to do this. It just seems to be that's its reason for being. But yeah, I also wonder if a -2 penalty to perception rolls is really enough to represent the constant near misses of self-harm that they seem to be trying to set up here.
All perception rolls? Well, it's supposed to also scare people. So the idea, you have a good point. I think the best way to take this is that the intention is it's supposed to be doing this when a person would be in a bad spot. Like, it bemuses you when there's somebody big, tough, angry, and dangerous walking by, and the storyteller would call for a perception check and to notice, oh, I need to avoid this person. And then it goes, haha, -2. And then, the average person has 4 dice in that one. They're probably not going to succeed. They bump into the person, and now bad things happen.
I suppose.
But that is kind of a heavy lift because I had to say all of that, and I don't think the book does.
Yeah. It also kind of like, it has a time limit. So again, is it that hard to beat if you can just like stay with this person and keep them from hurting themselves for a few days? Knock them unconscious.
This was the point when I started to say to myself, these monsters really feel like excuses to backport to fill the proverbs rather than something unique that happens to be similar. Also, they're starting to sound kind of the same, where the Dreamer is not that different conceptually from the Mirare, and I think that carries on through a lot of the other ones.
Yeah, and with the Mirari, I mean, just going back a bit, we already got doppelgangers, and frankly, they were better done earlier.
We love doppelgangers.
So the story idea we have here has a CEO's heir as the victim of the Dreamer, and I immediately don't care about any of this. But I guess there could be monetary gain for the PCs to, get involved. The scene itself is just to keep the heir from being scared off of a roof as the starfish creature finally reveals itself. But it also makes me wonder, like, how did the PCs, as apparent experts in unusual problems, get looped in so quickly to this situation? You'd have to kind of like set that up as well. Yeah, again, I guess this could be a hedge beast. Meh.
This would work pretty well as something that a privateer had set up. Expand it beyond ladders. Say that there's a privateer whose whole thing is, I work with a buddy, and on this side of the world, I set up these temporary portals, ladders, and other constructions. And I just turn them into hedge gates, and I trick somebody into walking through it, some normal mortal, and boom, they're now in the hedge. They don't realize it at first. I swoop in, I grab my makeshift portal and collapse it so there's no way back. Now, we've got a Dreamer hanging out here, and what it does is it scares the person right into my buddy's trap, and then we take them away. Boom, instant use for this. You could even keep the Dreamer out of there entirely, and I actually already like this a lot more.
Yeah.
Some privateer who is setting up temporary portals, God, that would be good to investigate. That would be a fun mystery.
And you could have them have any kind of companion, not this weird semi-corporeal starfish thing. I'm all for semi-corporeal starfish, but
I want them to have a place in my universe.
So anyway, So next up, if 4 is lucky, 5 must be luckier, right?
Well, not if you're going to encounter the goblin roaches.
Content warning bugs.
The goblin roaches are fascinating to me. Despite the name, they are not inherently hedge creatures, which talk about missed opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
But they are these little cockroach-like creatures that have vaguely humanoid heads. And we get a full ecology around their hives. The king who leads the soldiers into battle, the chemicals they secrete into clover, a 5-leaf clover being the symbol of one goblin roach queen's territory, others being seen as rival territory. The idea that if you pluck the 5-leaf clover, that sends a signal to them that their territory is being invaded, so they come after you. They don't really pursue you far if you run away. You can actually talk to them. They are a hive mind that is intelligent enough to, yeah, they have intelligence too. And it says you can speak to them. I mean, they're kind of terrifying if you get them hit in a swarm, but I'm divided on whether I would use these things. There is so much written about their ecology that I just want them to be in the hedge. There's way more written about these than anything else, and it feels special in some way.
Well, I mean, it does say it's not a hedge creature, but you can change that for your chronicle. So, like, yeah, make them hedge creatures. That's fine.
Oh, I forgot my most important note for this. Nobody knows how the king of the goblin roaches is chosen.
I mean, it must be like the quartz where the crown just manifests. Actually, that'd be great. What if you gave them quartz, like seasonal style? Anyway.
You are brilliant. I love the idea that the local Changeling freehold might use goblin roaches as proxy wars for deciding how the crown gets handed off. They each bet on their own favored goblin roach territory, and every season or so they watch as the goblin roaches go to war. This would be great to have just like some new motley of changelings show up and get invited to the Goblin Roach games. And I can imagine players going, what is this? And then very quickly going from that to, I'm going to interfere so my team wins.
That is a much more compelling story than the one we have here with more sociopath children. And, you know, you're supposed to save them. And I'm just like, nah, just let them go.
Speaking of children, do you want to move on to the next one?
Yeah, although to put a bow on that thought, it feels like these scenes are almost being constructed as kind of an afterthought, just stuck together by template. And I don't know, that doesn't make it particularly interesting or compelling to me.
It also feels a little like double dipping because we get a page and a half of the story seed, and then we have a half page before that of a story idea. It's the same thing.
With the first one, I turned the page and I was like, I have to keep going with this. Like, I have to actually think. And the mechanics, like there's different roles and stuff, and often the mechanics are repeated, which just felt like padding. But anyway. So yeah, next up, Only the Children of Autumn. It is bad luck for those not born in October to wear opals, apparently. And the origin of that superstition is actually fairly modern. There was a Walter Scott novel where there's like an evil opal that a character has. There was something about the De Beers Diamond Company trying to create a rumor about opals back in like the 40s or 50s or something to keep them from becoming more popular than diamonds. So it's almost like marketing, bad marketing more than superstition, which I thought was kind of interesting and weird. Anyway, in this instance, there is a spirit formerly known as Opalios and now known as Autumne, and I don't know why they insist on pronouncing it like that. But he gets annoyed at anyone not born in October who wears his stone. He's a dramatic and malicious gothy spirit with wind-blown hair, but he can be reasoned with. He offers victims a chance to repent before probably murdering them. His powers are Judge, which is just like sincerity detection, and Rend, a spirit attack that does aggravated damage. There are notes about him taking a host, so I guess he should be easy to deal with. Like, if he takes a host, can't you just deal with the host?
Well,
I don't know.
The important thing here is that He's designed to be going up against people who aren't player characters, and his
That's
stats are
true.
pretty good for that. Strength 4, Brawl 3 is more than most people are going to have. Health 8 is not bad.
Speed 12.
And most importantly, the fact that Rend is a mental assault that does aggravated damage is incredible.
That's intense.
Yeah, that is enough to make him a significant opponent.
But it's not clear to me if he takes a host, does the host have those powers, or is this only when he's in his like spirit form? I don't know if that's really.
I would say that these are his stats for when he is as manifest as he gets. So if he's taken over a physical form, I would substitute in his stats for that.
All right. The story we have here, this actually connects the sort of opening little italics thing with the story, which I think might be the only time we get that. But we have this woman named Julie who's kind of awful and maybe deserves to be haunted, getting cornered by this spirit and the players helping her learn how to apologize. The one thing that not frustrated me, the one thing about this is that you will need to know the characters' birth dates for this story. So if you don't want to telegraph that to your players, figure that out in advance or something. Weirdly, I think you could actually get a lot of mileage out of this as a lost story. Like, have a token ring, which is a direct line to a keeper if it's worn by any non-autumn lost or something.
Oh, for me, this one was instantly a keeper.
Yeah.
Autumne is such a character. He's fancy. He gets kind of adorably slighted at people who touch. It's like, my stone, my stone.
Yeah, but then he tears their souls apart.
Yes, it's adorable until the part where he does that. But I feel sympathetic towards him. He used to be a nice spirit, and then he just became malicious and corrupt over
The
time.
victim of bad marketing.
Bad things happened to him. The wicked diamond spirits eventually got to Autumne and destroyed him. I like he gives you a chance to apologize. I think most people would, because the alternative is being torn apart by a guy.
Right. Yeah, it's like if it's that easy.
It's actually very hard to get killed by Autumne, because he will very specifically first use Judge to see whether you're actually a bad person, and then either way he'll then let you apologize.
I do like the note that if the opal in the ring is broken, then Autumne is banished from Julie until she wears another opal, because she just will not learn.
I love these opal rings.
I just couldn't stop myself.
Anyway, yeah, a keeper who is connected to a ring and shows up when people wear it and goes after them if they're not born in October is one of those weird fae things that is perfectly fine and also works just as well for a particularly clarity lost changeling.
Yeah. Next up,
Glistering or glittering. Neither is gold.
it does say glistering, doesn't it?
I have never heard the word glistering.
I don't think it's supposed to.
Incredible.
Yeah, all right, whatever.
Well, the opening fiction is a briefer account of something from the prelude. There's apparently a surprising number of cultures that have sayings about the glitter of gold.
Let me put this out there. I think she just made a lot of this up. So I'm just, it's very fanciful. But that said, there's this whole extensive thing about Vikings in this instance, like, oh, it's a Viking monster. And I do actually like that because Vikings had a connection to the amber trade in history. And that sort of resembles, because this is the creature from the opening prelude, that notion of like a golden, sappy thing that traps victims fits well with that. So I liked that.
This is yet another great mimic character from Chronicles of Darkness, and very appropriate for your Changeling games. The entity is known as a Glittra. I like the name Glittra. Glistering. There's a horrifying description of them devouring a Norse explorer, but the Glittra are sentient masses that resemble gold, lure people in, and eat them. They can make ropey tendrils to assist with this. They can migrate, but we don't get any information on how they do this. Only that they're now showing up in sewers, maybe because their natural habitat is threatened. I would have liked even more on this one because I loved my goblin roaches, and this is getting close to that same level. I think it's better than the Dolly Octhon but not as cool as the goblin roaches.
I mean, it really just felt like a D&D monster to me. Like semi-gelatinous, semi-sentient, cave-dwelling monster that resembles gold and tries to dissolve and eat those who touch it. Like, that just sounds like a D&D thing. But
that would have been perfect for Autumn Nightmares.
There's a thing here I noted where it has an ensnare power, and it says it does crushing damage, and I didn't know. I was like, is that supposed to be a specific kind of damage? But maybe it's just for flavor.
I think that's just for flavor.
Yeah.
I think this would work especially well as a hedge beast because one of the hedge's psychoactive properties is that it preys upon people's vices. And what could be better than a gigantic lump of gold just sitting there?
Gigantic lump of pie. Oh my god, imagine if it was like a cherry pie monster instead. It would be a goner.
I'm just imagining a big old, like, there's just a jam pile moving past you. It's all cherry red with big blobbing elements in it. I wouldn't touch it, but Puka, chase your happiness.
Yeah, I would. It's the sweetest death of all. Speaking of death, next up is ashes to ashes, death to death. And the idea at the root here is that you should always leave a few embers burning in the hearth fire, linked as it was with prosperity and life. Lots of fire festivals and other folklore is actually linked to that. I think this is less bullshit, the opening lore that's here. So the monsters that come out of this are ashburn demons, not spirits, demons, who resemble vortices of burning ashes. They are responsible for so-called accidental house fires, smart and aggressive, and they just love burning things and people. I do like the note that they get smaller as they burn through, so they slowly extinguish themselves. They can be reasoned with using intimidation, but water and fire extinguishers will get the job done as well. Pretty easy, again, to deal with.
They're weird little vortices full of eyes, and I love their artwork, which is just a vague ash tornado with some eyes in it. It's almost D&D 2nd edition Invisible Stalker levels of appearance for this thing. I don't see how these things have anything to do with hearth fires. I guess they just like it. But this is, again, falling into that same thing as the Mirare and the Dreamers, where it's a weird thing that shows up and it's not really clear why it's here other than something lets it in. I don't know. I feel like we've gotten 3 monsters that are kind of similar in that they don't really make much sense for their connections.
I mean, I think all of them have been kind of like that, but yeah.
They made a huge effort with the goblin roaches.
I guess that's true.
As for the Ashburn's use in a story, for Changeling, I would just say that it's a manifestation of a contract with Hearth or element fire that goes wrong. So you screw up a couch, you get a dramatic failure on something, and maybe this thing shows up as the physical manifestation of you messing up that contract clause.
Or just an elemental with really low clarity.
Ooh, spooky.
The story idea we get here is that the players are at this backyard barbecue when the Ashburns show up to cause mayhem. And the gist is like, oh, now your characters will have to reveal their supernatural identities to properly save people. But I think hoses and fire extinguishers are going to be more effective against them than most powers available to supernaturals, right? And mortals can use those too. So unless you're a vampire who will probably frenzy, I feel like, no, you're not going to have to reveal yourself. Just turn on the damn hose.
You also don't need to be supernatural, and I'm not sure why they assume you are. Heck, they have a variation for an Innocence game where it's just a slumber party and one Ashburn shows up and, okay.
Whatever.
Well, I guess these things are kind of scary, but let's just walk away a little bit.
Yeah. So moving on, the penultimate, spirits of the house. So the belief in question here is that you shouldn't open an umbrella indoors because in this write-up, it stems from the fact that doing so offends the Domos house spirits because you're implying that their protection is inadequate, which then leads to all sorts of household problems like accidents, spoiled food, etc. They do have connections to the Domovoi, as we saw with the Old Kith Book Boggins and then the Sample Kith in Changeling the Dreaming 20th Anniversary Edition. But as pointed out here, they also make good hobgoblins, and Fae can therefore perhaps deal with them more easily. They would make good chimera, too, in Dreaming. I really like the note that when they manifest, they can't be harmed by household objects. They can also break things at will in their house and curse people, and they have poisonous claws. They are a bundle of fun. I am all for them.
I like them a lot. The part where they can't be hurt by household objects might seem to some readers to be kind of useless, but keep in mind that includes all the obvious weapons that somebody might use, like a kitchen knife, for example. Just
Yeah.
does not work on them.
Nothing at
Period.
all. A gun, on the other hand, unless it's the house gun, I guess.
You know what, Puka? I would give you that. I would give you that if there's been a gun that sits on the mantelpiece of the household, it does not work on the Domos.
Nope. You can try to reason with them or attempt to fight them, but again, like with Autumne, it seems like a sincere apology will actually do some good.
This seems like the kind of great thing for a lost game where you learn that some friend of yours is having these weird troubles, and then you come in and you can see the hobgoblin, and you have to figure out how to negotiate this. You, being half Fae yourselves, are likely to be sympathetic to these little guys who go, "This is my house. I live here, and we kind of have a deal." Oh, the human doesn't get it? Well, kind of the human's problem, don't you think? I could see the changelings taking either side or even looking for a middle ground here.
See, that's the thing, is that the story hook we get here is that the characters have been asked to help figure out what's haunting, in quotes, this house, and they immediately get their answer right when the story starts, because the owner's like, oh, leave your umbrellas open, and the Domos manifests immediately to call out the owner. So it's like, there's no mystery here, there's no obfuscation. But the other thing is, defeating them in combat wouldn't actually like kill them permanently, right? And then the consequences are like, oh, if you manage to defeat them or talk them into forgiving the house owners, they'll let you rent the house. That's not great. It's not. I would just leave the house.
Yeah, you can't kill these things. That's a terrible idea to fight them. You should never do that. You either need to negotiate with them or leave the house.
Yeah, make peace like grandma with her cookies at the start.
Okay, I wasn't super sold on these folks at first, but I think they may have jumped to my top of my list. They might be beating goblin roaches now.
Yeah. Last but not least, smell the flowers but don't take one. Which, again, besides the jabroni in this opening story, who takes flowers from a graveyard?
The villain is the ghost of a pharaoh who's really angry at people grave robbing, but he's now going after grave robbers wherever they manifest.
Yeah.
This feels like a stretch to me, Puka.
Just a bit.
When he manifests, he looks like smoke. The story talks like he's always coming out of a bouquet of flowers, but that feels too specific for it to be the only way that he shows up. On the other hand, maybe it needs to be that specific to explain why he isn't showing up constantly. I don't know, and I'm not sure I really care. This is our fourth monster that is just... The picture for the monster, Puka, is a bouquet of flowers with smoke coming out of it. I want
Scary
a monster
smoke.
picture. I want a monster picture in my monster book.
It really didn't grip me. Especially like destroying the flowers solves the problem immediately. And I was kind of perplexed by when we get this scene that's like revolving around this and it's saying physical 4 challenge. I'm like, just go destroy the flowers. Anyway.
I don't really have much more to say about that bouquet of flowers, even for Changeling. After that, we get a summary of the scenes from the book, and that is it.
Yeah. So some of these might work for your table, but if you do drop them in, you'll need to take the time in most cases to get the setup in place and to have that proverbial connection clear if you even want to use it. I would say they're largely presented as being more threatening or difficult to beat than they actually are, with the probable exception of the big shambling earth golem. Regardless, there's just not much payoff. Like, they give these consequences to each scene of various intensity, but as with urban legends, I think what I said for that one is I find those difficult to sustain for the most part. The story hooks are just like thin justifications wrapped around random encounters. Random encounters by design don't have much depth. They are adaptable to Lost for the most part, but we've already gotten so many hedge beasts and whatnot that are better adapted for that game. So, we're talking about this book. It is not available on DriveThruRPG. I don't know how much people are missing, frankly.
I had mixed feelings about this book. It missed my expectations because many of the monsters felt like a stretch, even once you fully understand what's going on. And several of them are similar to each other in ways that deprive the whole of them of a unique identity.
Yeah.
I could see a storyteller making good use out of any one of these sections. If they had a game they needed to run today, you could grab any one of these stories and drop them in. Now, I don't think these are going to be your best stories, but if you're looking to just fill some time for a session, hang out with friends, try out the game system, it's not a bad way of handling it. I just wouldn't be mining it for ideas for a full campaign. As for its utility for changing the Lost, as you said, we already have plenty of hedge beasts, but people could always use more. I would not make this your first purchase. I would recommend going with a different book. Like, I do think Urban Legends is pretty strong for someone looking for an opening, but if you can get a hold of a copy of Proverbial Monsters, if it ever comes back on DriveThruRPG.
This can't be anyone's first purchase as of this recording.
If it is, tell us how you accomplished that. That's impressive.
Knock it off the back of a truck.
Well, I think that's all we have to say about Proverbial Monsters.
Yeah. But for other things that people might want to say, if you'd like to reach out to us on various channels around the interwebs, you can stop by our Discord at discord.me/CTP. Send an email to podcast@changelingthepodcast.com. Search Changeling the Podcast on Facebook or YouTube. We have a Mastodon at changelingpod@dice.camp, and our Patreon is patreon.com/changelingthepodcast. Links to all of those will be in the show notes to this episode. Until next time, I've been the Proverbial Puka.
And I am the monster known as Fetch.
And don't count your keepers before they hatch. Don't put all your goblin fruit in one basket.
Today's advice to everybody: please make sure the embers are still working in your house. Make sure you're not wearing opal unless you were born in October. And if you see a little crack with some greenery growing out of it, why not give a quick wave to your friendly Dolly Octhon? They'll appreciate it.
1 for sorrow, 2 for joy, 3 for oat milk, 4 for soy, 5 for liver, 6 for spleen, 7 for a keeper never to be seen. The whiny cousins of Proverbial Monsters are the platitudinous foes, a class of distinctly weak sauce antagonists inspired by various empty phrases that circulate around the culture. Nobody's perfect, a point reinforced by the miniature brain-weasel hedge beasts that sit atop a target's head and poke them at just the right moment to prevent the expenditure of willpower to boost a die roll. Thoughts and prayers are manifest by lumpen humanoid shades who give hugs to the wounded that do absolutely nothing and otherwise use their ectoplasmic bodies to push back against those who try to help. Good things come to those who wait, they say, and indeed, at moments of dramatic failure, the sparkling animate color ribbons called serendipities dance around the hapless victim, filling them with notions of the counterbalancing success that they are supposedly due. Not that this will be much help when the little imps twist the strings of fate to ensure their next failure will also be a dramatic one. One of our goals in the podcast offices is to compile a field guide of these minor annoyances, an effort in which we are assisted by our patrons, who get a shout-out at the end of each episode. They include Bad Company, Ben the Canadian, Sig Lawson Jr., Derek, Dorcadus, Elleris, Henry Kraft, Ia Bull, Oreo, Raskaboos, Rebecca B., Sandshaker, Sija, The Crew of Erebus, and Ware Buffalo. Many thanks for your support. You too can join their ranks by signing up at www.patreon.com/changelingthepodcast, but we also welcome reviews on the podcast listening platform of your greatest convenience, or just tell a friend about us. In the meantime, remember that everything happens for a reason, and that reason is usually a malevolent keeper with an axe to grind, so take the good with the bad, and the glamour with the banality as you keep on dreaming.